Hi there, beautiful souls. It's Merav Richter here from Brave Ecstatic Woman. You're joining me in my womb yet again. I've got my cup of something. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It might be water, might be coffee, might be wine. Who knows? And today we're going to talk about, let me take a little sip and put that down. Let's talk today about 6 ways to know that you're doing shadow work without really knowing that you're doing shadow work. And in the case that you haven't read my book, Brave Ecstatic Woman, I talk about shadow work or what the shadow is in here, but just to give you a little recap, or in case you didn't know, your shadow is what Jung called sort of the unexplored parts of yourself, those parts that you keep hidden, that are the parts of your psyche that are very, very integral to you as a human being, as a whole and complete person, but those parts that you don't want to look at. They store in the recesses of your mind. They're sort of like that subconscious work. And a lot of times we look at the shadow as if it's sort of like the evil part of us, right? Like that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And that's simply not true. Your shadow is integral to you. And when you shine the light into your shadow is actually when you see your greatest strength coming through. And it's really your portal to power. Once you start doing the shadow work, then all those aspects of your life that you are too scared to look at kind of come into strength, come into balance, and really let you soar and choose to live sort of the life that you were intended to live, that Akashic Records, the destiny, that book of life that you are intended to live. So it's really integral. And a lot of people are doing their shadow work without really calling it shadow work. So let's get right into it. Number 1 of the 6 signs that you are doing shadow work without really knowing that you're doing shadow work is that you're digging up your past traumas and blockages, looking into and shining the light, coming into a little flashlight like Nancy Drew all into the dark places, to look into those things that are in those dark areas that you have previously maybe shut down, not looked at, whether that's in a group therapy or CBT or any kind of, even if you're doing internal work like that meditation, and being willing to look at what demons come up for you. Number 2, things that you know you're doing shadow work without intentionally doing shadow work is that you question every single BS. And by BS, I mean BS is not what we think it stands for. BS is your belief system. So when you come up against something, when you start thinking, where did that come from? What part of me first learned that? Was that cultural? Was that something that came in that I bought hook, line, and sinker because I was told to buy it, because it was something that was bought to me in my belief system? When you start to separate yourself from that, it's that sort of cognitive belief, that cognitive allowance of seeing that what you think may be rooted in something that you didn't actually really think about that. Number 3 of the 6 ways that you know that you're doing shadow work without really knowing that you're doing shadow work is that you fall in love with your dark side, that repressed side of you. It might be a little bit kinky. It might be a little bit something that you don't want people to know about. So you've got no more of that. You're not willing to take on that law of attraction, the fluffy, the love and light all the time. You're willing to actually be a little bit dark and kick-ass. You're willing to be badass about your life because you're not really looking to please anyone, because that's not your modus operandi anymore. That's not your MO. And it's kind of freeing letting your shadow side out to play a little bit, right? Number 4, let me take a little sip here of my whatever this is, mystery. And it's actually in my Maven cup, Merav the Maven. In case you don't know what a Maven is, it does say it in the bottom of the cup. A Maven is an expert. So let's get right into this. Number 4 of the 6 ways you know you're doing shadow work is that you start to question every projection. So when you start calling somebody else judgmental, when you start calling somebody else a snob or shallow or disconnected, every single time you do that, then you start saying, where am I in that equation, because you know when you're pointing a finger, 3 fingers point back at you, right? So every time that you see something in someone else, you start to question what is it within you that was able to see that about that person. That's the sign that you're coming up against your shadow work, and you're unraveling some of those things that have kept you kind of locked in place with certain things. So, number 5 sign that you are doing your shadow work without even knowing that you're doing your shadow work, you fear less. Okay, now let's not get that confused. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you're fearless. You don't become fearless. Fear is always going to come. Fear is your safety mechanism. Fear is that thing that's going to say to you, follow that, be wary of that. You know, you've got to differentiate, but you fear things less because you are not connected to the outcome anymore. You set your goal, you set your approach, you have your direction, but you're not connected to getting to that destination anymore. So therefore that fear that comes along for the journey isn't there with you anymore. So you're fearing less. And then the number 6 ultimate sign that you know you're doing your shadow work without really doing your shadow work is that you start to get really, really intentional in your manifestation, and what looks like to the outsider that you're really lucky. We know there's no such thing as that. Anyone from the outside who looks in and sees that there's a lot of luck going on, that's only because you've been doing your internal work and you've been aligning to the things that are manifesting in your path. So it looks like luck, and that's a sure sign that it is one of the ways that you know you're doing your shadow work without really knowing that you're doing your shadow work. Until tomorrow, and we will talk more about that manifestation process, that intentional manifestation, and maybe even some orgasmic manifestation, because that starts to get really juicy and really intentional. I'll see you then. Until then, be brave, be bold, be you, be beautiful. It is so good to be here with you. Don't forget to click on the notifications so you get my Facebook Lives every time I come up. And I'll see you soon, beautiful souls. Thanks. Bye.